Today we're going to look at the scatter plot function. I'm going to go over to my contracts page and I'm going to look up the contract for scatter plot. First I think, what's the domain of scatter plot? It says I need a table, a labels string, an x's string, and a y's string. All of these strings are going to be column names. In my animals table, my column names are name, species, gender, aged, fixed, legs, pounds, and weeks. If I want to use the scatter plot, I'm going to start by running my program. This is a program that has the animals table loaded in. It also has two subsets, cats and dogs. If I want to look at a scatter plot, I need to know which table I want to use. Let's look at the cats table. If I want a scatter plot, I need to be able to compare two quantitative columns. Now in my data, the pounds column and the weeks column are quantitative. So I could compare them and I could see if they increase together or decrease together or if they're totally scattered around. Each point on my plot needs to be labeled. The most natural thing is to label with the name of the animal. Then we can see what animal that point goes to. On my x-axis, I'll say that I want to look at the number of weeks. And on my y-axis, I'll say I want to look at the pounds. Name, weeks, and pounds are all in quotation marks because they need to be strings according to the contract. I'll hit enter and I see a scatter plot. Okay, so I see Wade has 1 week in the animal shelter and weighs 3.2 pounds. Mittens was also there for 1 week but weighs 7.4 pounds. Hercules was only in the animal shelter for 2 weeks, but weighs 13.4 pounds. Sasha was in the animal shelter for 3 weeks and weighs 6.5 pounds. This scatter plot shows us how the pounds and the number of weeks in the animal shelter are related for cats. Once I close the interactive image, I could open it up again as an image that could be copied and pasted into my document. Let's do another example. This time we'll look at the dogs. So I have a subset called dogs, so that means I can make a scatter plot with the dogs. If I try to use a column that is not quantitative, like let's say that I wanted to compare the number of weeks the animal has been in the animal shelter to the gender of that animal, I get an error message that says it cannot make a scatter plot because the x's and the y's must both contain numeric data. If I change the gender to a column that does have numeric data, like pounds, I'll get my scatter plot. So for the dogs, you have dogs that weigh 35 pounds, 48 pounds, 92 pounds, right? And all of these animals here were adopted within the first 10 weeks. So it looks like most animals are adopted within 10 weeks. And then there's a few animals, Boo Boo and Cujo, that were both there for long periods of time. 24 weeks and 30 weeks. Right? We might want to look at this data, but without Boo Boo and Cujo. We might want to just look at this less than 10 weeks and see if there's a pattern there. To do that, I would go back and I would add a helper function that says I would say less than 10 weeks. That'll be the name of my helper function, is less 10 weeks. Takes a row and checks if the number of weeks of that row is less than 10. So now I could add a filter onto this. I could say dogs less than 10 weeks. That's going to be the dogs table filtered using is less 10 weeks. So now I have a new table here called dogs less than 10 weeks. I'm going to run the program again. And I'm going to make a new scatter plot. This time the scatter plot is just going to look at dogs who are in the animal shelter for less than 10 weeks. So I'll say scatter plot, dogs less 10 weeks. Label with the name, weeks on the X, pounds on the Y. So this is just the animals that have been in there for less than 10 weeks. And now we're looking to see if there's a pattern. Do they both go up together? Not really, because these animals kind of go up, but these animals here are both very light animals, or all four of them are animals that weigh less than 80 pounds, but they were in the animal shelter for longer. So we see there's not very much of a connection between the weeks and the pounds for these dogs that were less than 10 weeks.